Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a pivotal game from the NBA playoffs, specifically the Los Angeles Lakers Game 3 loss against Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, and this wasn't just any loss. There was a lot riding on it. Going into the playoffs, everyone knew the Lakers had a really, really thin margin for error.
Right. We heard that from coaches, from players. They basically said, look, we have to be great, not just good.
Exactly. It echoed some stuff from earlier in the season, too. Remember, after that Clippers game, the feeling was pretty good, just wasn't going to cut it.
And Luka Doncic, his arrival was supposed to be the thing, right? The piece that gave them that edge, that cushion they needed.
That was the idea, definitely. He was seen as that ultimate margin mover.
Yeah.
But, well, in Game 3, that cushion just wasn't there. It kind of vanished.
So that's what we're diving into. They knew they were on a tightrope. What actually went wrong? What were the key things based on what came out after the game that led to that loss?
Okay, so let's start with that cushion, with Doncic. Usually he's their rock, their advantage. But he was clearly struggling, dealing with an illness.
Yeah, I saw reports about that. He was even working out just before the game, trying to push through.
Right, but you could see it early. He started really slow, I think, 1 for 6 shooting, and then he had to leave the locker room late after halftime. Just wasn't himself.
So when your main guy, your safety net, is compromised like that, it makes every little mistake suddenly feel huge, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It magnifies everything else. Like you said, the foundation weakens. With Doncic not playing at his usual level, all those other Lakers mistakes, they became really damaging.
And what kind of mistakes are we talking about? The reports mention specific things.
Yeah, they use words like bruising, crushing, backbreaking. It boiled down to a few key areas. Missed free throws, giving up offensive rebounds, and just attention lapses, turnovers.
Ugh, the controllables, the stuff that drives coaches crazy, missed freebies, giving up extra possessions. That's tough.
Really tough. And the numbers back it up. Let's see, 19 total turnovers for the Lakers, and they gave up 9 offensive rebounds to Minnesota.
Wow, 19 turnovers and 9 O-boards. So Minnesota just got way more chances to score then?
Exactly. They ended up taking 13 more shots in the game.
Yeah.
13, and they scored 10 more points on the fast break, too.
10 points just in transition. That's a big swing. And those turnovers must have led to easy points as well.
Oh, yeah. Minnesota scored, get this, 28 points directly off those 19 Laker turnovers. 28 points, plus all that transition scoring.
You can't win like that. What did the coach say about it?
You basically said, yeah, really hard to win a basketball game in that scenario. I mean, giving up that many possessions.
Makes sense. And I heard one of the team leaders was pretty blunt about it, too. Something about controlling the controllables.
That's right. Stressing how important that is, especially in the playoffs. And basically saying they failed to do it. Pointing specifically to those 19 turnovers on the road, no less.
It's like you have no wiggle room, and then you just give possessions away. Mentally tough.
It really is. It undermines everything else you're trying to do. Which is interesting because while Doncic was struggling, someone else was having an incredible game.
Ah, right. James. It was kind of the opposite story for him, wasn't it? Reports described his performance as sublime.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the real contrast here. Doncic is sick, the team's making mistakes, but James seemed, I don't know, completely locked in, fired up by being on the road in the playoffs.
What did that look like? Any specific examples?
Well, people mentioned him like point to the bench after making a play, doing his 3-point celebration, just really active, tons of energy on both ends, rebounding, playing defense.
And the stats were nuts, right? Something about being over 40.
Yeah, 38 points in 41 minutes.
Yeah.
Which apparently is the most points ever scored in a playoff game by someone over 40.
That's pretty amazing, actually. Just sheer will.
Incredible individual effort. The coach even mentioned he looked healthier, moving better than before. So you had that bright spot, that individual brilliance shining through.
Okay, so James was carrying a heavy load. But he wasn't totally alone, was he? I think Reeves had a decent game, too, bouncing back from a rough game, too.
Yeah, good point. Can't forget the supporting guys. Reeves chipped in 20 points. And honestly, his scoring probably kept them sort of in it, despite all the other problems piling up. Showed some resilience.
But still, those turnovers, you called them backbreaking. Were there specific ones that just seemed particularly bad?
The reports highlighted a few types, like multiple 24-second violations. Just couldn't get a shot off, which hints at maybe indecision or lack of awareness.
Yeah, that's rough. What else?
Losing control of rebounds, just simple handling errors. One description was a ball literally slipping through a player's hands. And there was one specific play mentioned, Rudy Gobert stripping a liquor fee.
Mm.
leading straight to an easy bucket for Jaden McDaniels on the other end.
Ouch. And not always under pressure, you're saying? Some were just unforced?
Seems like it. Just lapses. Which,
Mhm.
again, you can't afford with no margin for error.
And speaking of McDaniels, sounds like he was a real problem for them defensively, especially inside.
Oh, definitely. This was another huge factor. If the turnovers were self-inflicted, this was Minnesota exploiting a weakness.
Yeah.
The Lakers just seemed vulnerable protecting the rim
How did McDaniels take advantage?
aggressively. I think 24 of his 30 points came right there in the paint. He took over 20 shots, just kept attacking.
And the Lakers' usual rim protection wasn't there.
Reports mentioned their starting center struggled, didn't play a ton of minutes, and when he was on the court, the Lakers actually got outscored pretty badly in those stretches. So, yeah, big vulnerability.
Okay, so let's put it all together. It sounds like a perfect storm almost. You've got your main guy, Doncic, sick, which erases your already tiny safety net.
Right, margin for error, gone.
Then you pile on these unforced errors, turnovers, offensive rebounds, surrendered.
Mistakes that just kill momentum and give the other team life.
And on top of that, a clear defensive weakness rim protection that Minnesota just hammered.
Exactly. Led by McDaniels' big night inside.
So despite that huge game from James, it just wasn't enough to overcome all that.
Nope. Too many things going wrong at once.
And looking ahead now, this loss puts them in a really tough spot, doesn't it?
It really does. The pressure ramps up significantly. They've got to win the next one on short rest, basically to avoid falling into a potentially insurmountable hole.
And guys played heavy minutes too, right? Despite the issues.
Yeah, Doncic played 40 minutes despite being ill. Reeves played 41 after struggling before. Shows you the urgency, but also the physical toll it's taking.
So the message has to be, again, controlling the controllables, right?
Yeah.
We got to clean that stuff up immediately.
That seems to be the internal focus. They have to limit those mistakes next game. No choice, really.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on Game 3, the picture is pretty clear. Doncic being sick was the catalyst, wiping out their thin margin. But the loss was really sealed by a wave of self-inflicted mistakes, those 19 turnovers, the offensive rebounds.
Yeah, those just compounded the initial problem.
Yeah.
And they overshadowed that incredible game from James.
And then there was the defensive side, the lack of rim protection that Minnesota, especially McDaniels, really exploited.
Precisely. It's a tough lesson, isn't it? A team knows it has limitations, knows it needs to be sharp, and then illness hits, fundamentals break down, and a key weakness gets exposed all at once.
So think about this as you're listening. The Lakers knew their situation. They knew they had to be almost perfect. What does it really take, mentally and physically, for a team to truly lock in and control those controllables when the pressure is that high and their safety net is gone?
Yeah, it's one thing to say it, another to do it in the heat of the playoffs, and maybe one last thing to chew on. You James playing maybe his best game, Doncic struggling, specific breakdowns like turnovers and rim defense. If you could make just one adjustment before that game, knowing what we know now, what would it be? What single change might have actually swung the result? And what does this game tell you about that razor-thin line between being just pretty good and finding that next level, that greatness when everything is on the line?